Time Killers.
Hello everybody, I'm Steve White, and welcome to another Subspace Brief Facts. In 1991, Street Fighter II forever altered the American arcade scene. With its vivid graphics and simple yet nuanced head-to-head gameplay, Street Fighter II ushered in the era of the fighting game with a definitive fierce punch to the dome. As Street Fighter machines gradually replaced the throngs of space shooters and co-op beat-em-ups, it became more and more apparent that there was significant money to be made in fighting games, and, as is the natural order of things, clones began to appear. Fighting games of all stripes and levels of quality began to fill arcades. Some were bad, some were good, but to be perfectly frank, most of them were, ultimately, forgettable. The ones we do remember, though, were the ones with a gimmick, and that gimmick, more often than not, was blood. While games such as Mortal Kombat couldn't necessarily go head-to-head on quality with Street Fighter II, they distinguished themselves by providing a visceral, violent feast for the eyes and ears. And in the arcades of the early 90s, that counted for a lot of quarters. If it bled, it led.
Liu Kang wins. Fatality.
Well, most of the time, anyway. I can't remember an early fighting game bloodier than Incredible Technology's Time Killers. For that matter, it's tough for most people to remember it, period. But if you dropped a few bucks into it back in the day, it most certainly made an impression. Or at least, a blood stain. Time Killers is a weapons-based 2D fighter, one of the first of its subgenre. But that's not really what made it memorable. Its true innovation can be discovered by simply playing a single round. The fighters in Time Killers lose their arms like sleeves are going out of style. What will be a finishing maneuver in most games is just part of the action in Time Killers. Losing a limb doesn't even stop the action. It just stops you from using that limb. Well, actually you can still use it. It just, bleeds. But the fun doesn't stop there, friends. Heads are fully detachable. Yes, that's right, folks. As soon as the bell rings, you are in imminent danger of brutal decapitation. Every single character in the game has a decapitation maneuver, easily performed by simply mashing all of the attack buttons simultaneously, which can kill an opponent at a moment's notice. Back in the day, that fraction of a second would have cost player 2 there about 25 cents. Talk about your value propositions. Not bloody enough for you? Don't worry, there's more. If you're lucky enough to get your opponent dizzy, and don't worry, sometimes it only takes 2 hits, you can just walk right up to them, activate your decapitation move, and it slices, it dices, and look at that tomato. You can lose all your limbs in a single attack. No secret inputs needed. Other games hide their gory surprises. Time Killers eschews that and relishes in rolling around in its own gory filth. Time Killers has been referred to as a Mortal Kombat knockoff, but it might be more appropriate to refer to it as an also-ran. Time Killers was released only a month after Mortal Kombat. Time Killers isn't a masterpiece of game design by any stretch, but it's difficult to imagine it being programmed and manufactured in a mere month. But not too difficult to imagine, because if you spend more than a few seconds with it, you'll start to come to the conclusion that Time Killers really just isn't a very great game. Computer AI vacillates between incredibly stupid and viciously cheap. Hitboxes are all over the place. The characters are unbalanced. There's a dearth of interesting and useful special maneuvers, and attack damage, at times, seems downright random. Outside of decapitations, you'd be hard-pressed to tell why or how you caused an opponent's limbs to fly off. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I'm sure there's some kind of method to Time Killer's madness, but the game's other deficiencies keep me from wanting to really figure it out. To put a point on it, Time Killers lacks any of the qualities which we have come to associate with good fighting games. It's a bloody mess, literally and figuratively. But this lack of polish doesn't mean Time Killers isn't worth a play or two. For one, it's got a campy sense of dark humor that goes a long way. Fully embracing its absurdity, Time Killers awards points based on the number of limbs you chop off in a match. You can go for big money by dropping around just for the opportunity to cut off 6 arms. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the incredible thrill of getting a bonus for an armless victory. And there's the win quotes. God, some of these are just priceless. Time Killers has a storyline which isn't dissimilar to that of the Genesis classic Eternal Champions, wherein legendary individuals from throughout human history, from the Stone Age to our future annihilation at the hands of the Mantis people, fight in a tournament to win immortality by besting Death himself. And yes, Death is in fact a blue man in a neon-trimmed unitard. The plot, though, is really just window dressing and an excuse to pit a series of generic, though diverse and colorful, genre fiction archetypes against one another in a duel to the death. The sparse endings are little reward for dealing with Time Killer's deficient gameplay, but hey, it's not the destination, but the gory trail of intestines that leads you there. Am I right? Of course I am. So, despite its flaws, of which there are many, Time Killers brings enough spectacle to the table to warrant a few minutes of your time. The fact that some folks remember it fondly despite its complete lack of refinement may just be proof of this. It's a bit of a cult classic, and a great little snapshot of a moment in time, a glimpse into when blood and guts dominated arcades, and when violent games could get by on shock value alone. Time Killers is straight up gore porn, but its little quirks made it stand out from its contemporaries. It's exploitation gaming at its absolute absurd peak. So, until next time, this is Steve White for Subspace Briefcase, signing off, and welcoming our Mantis overlords with open arms.